Hey everybody, how's it going? Hope you're having a lovely day. Just a month ago, I did a video titled, How Does Google Get Away with This? In this video, I'm talking about the fact that Google will restrict hardware manufacturers with restrictive agreements from being able to utilize Google Play services and framework on their devices if they also sell devices that come with different forks of Android. So when it comes to Android, a lot of people have this misconception that everything on their phone is open source because Android is open source. And that couldn't be further from the case. What you have on your phone is the Android open source project combined with a bunch of proprietary libraries from Google that, as I went over in previous videos, and I will include links to down below, are constantly spying on you in the most creepy ways possible. These libraries are necessary for so much on your phone to actually work. You think that your phone is open source Android, but when you strip all those libraries away, if you want to use Uber or Lyft or Grubhub or your banking app or do lots of basic things with your phone, it's just not going to work anymore. So hardware manufacturers are often forced into these agreements where they're not allowed to provide phones with open source forks of Android that Sundar Pichai doesn't give the kiss of approval to. And this is a serious problem because, as I've gone over in several of my videos, one of the big problems that you run into is that these devices are, as I said, constantly spying on you. And if you want to use a distribution like Calyx OS or Graphene OS or Lineage OS or EOS or whatever else, or if it's using Micro G or Sandbox Google Play services, if, again, doesn't have the kiss of approval from Sundar Pichai, the hardware manufacturer is going to be restricted by contract from being able to offer a phone with that operating system coming on it by default, which is why it's very difficult to buy an Android phone, if not close to impossible, that doesn't come shipped with Google spyware on it. So this is a very interesting piece of news over here. I asked how did they get away with this, and apparently they're not anymore. So over here, it says that India fined Google $162 million for anti-competitive practices on Android. Over here, it says that Amazon was fearing Google putting off vendors from TV hardware partnership because Fire TVs would use a fork of Android. That is not something that I guess Sundar Pichai approved of, and it looks like that is slowly coming to an end. So here it says Amazon and Google make peace over smart TV competition. The two companies have struck a deal that allows Amazon to work with manufacturers like TCL, which also makes Android TVs and phones. So again, if you make Android devices, then you can sell something that uses a fork of Android that they don't approve of. And they claim that this is to reduce fragmentation because it's good for the ecosystem, when in reality, in my opinion, I just think it's a way of ensuring that Google spyware is on your device that is constantly sending shit back to the mothership and constantly doing creepy shit like this. Like when you're not even using the Maps application, just constantly reporting to Google where you are and the confidence with which you are walking, running, driving, or on a train. Fuck you, I don't need you knowing that all the time. This is one step in the right direction. The idea that they're actually getting fined for something related to antitrust. I think it's time for us to either shit or get off the pot. If Microsoft is going to get in trouble for bundling a web browser with an operating system and making it mildly more difficult for other browsers to be able to exist, then why is it that we're just pretending that it's not an issue when somebody who has about half of the smartphone market says if you want to be able to sell our product with our libraries that just so happen to be necessary for virtually everything, you're not allowed to sell an operating system that doesn't have our spyware on it. That stuff is insane. If you want to say, listen, fuck antitrust law, big companies should do whatever they want, at that point, at the very least, I could respect the ideological consistency. But at this point, we really do have to kind of make a decision as a society. Do antitrust laws matter, or do we just rip this shit up and pretend that it was a mistake to begin with? Because the amount of crap that you're able to get away with at this point in time without getting in any trouble at all until another country fines you 0.00001% of your entire bank account is starting to get old. Now, when you look into comments here, one of the things that makes me sadder than everything else is the reason that this stuff probably occurs. It's because, as I always say, we let it. When you read the comments over here, it says, okay, honestly, there's one really funny comment. Hear me out. What if they made Android spoons instead of forks? Okay, that's kind of funny. I'll give it to you. That's kind of funny. That made me laugh. But when you read through the rest of it, it is so disappointing to read people simping for Google over here. One comment, competition is good, but I prefer my OSs be somewhat standardized and regulated. And Fire OS is a great example of the exact kind of modifications the world would honestly be better off without. How about I make that decision instead of you? Or I'll take Google's bumpy control over Android over crappy fragmentation any day. It's not perfect, but it works, and at least you know what you're getting. Really now? I'm confident that every single person in this comment section is exactly aware of what's being sent back to the manufacturer at all times. I'm confident that they know exactly how their location data is being used, when it is being collected, regardless of the Maps app being open, and the fact that not only is your location and the time you were there being reported, but the confidence with which they believe you were walking, running, on a bus, driving, or on public transportation, along with everything else. I'm sure they know exactly what all this stuff means, that this is being sent back to the advertiser, that this is being sent back to Google all the fucking time that you're using your phone, and I'm confident that that should be the person that gets to decide whether or not I'm allowed to use an operating system that puts a stop to that. Fuck off! Whether or not you think the Fire TV is good or a steaming piece of shit, I don't care. I don't use a Fire TV, and frankly, when we're talking about forks of Android, I tend to want to use forks of Android that are not made by Jeff Bezos or Amazon. Things that have just a slightly higher chance of respecting my personal privacy. I prefer to use something like Graphene OS to Fire TV. That being said, this is not about what I want or what they want. This is about people having the freedom to be able to purchase a device with the operating system of their choice without being shackled to the manufacturer's proprietary spyware. And that is a problem that we need to start solving. I'm telling you, at some point, all of this data collection is going to come back to bite us in the ass. We all like to joke when somebody says your device is spying on you. We've just kind of accepted that the Fourth Amendment just doesn't exist, that everything is spying on us all the time, that the NSA is doing it, that Google's doing it, Facebook's doing it. Hell, I tell somebody, hey, you want to read on your phone spying on you? They go, oh, I love being spied on. It's their unironic based way of saying, I don't care. I've accepted this at this point in time into my life. But we shouldn't. And even if you are going to accept it, you shouldn't be okay with that choice being removed for everybody else. You should be able to buy a phone that comes with EOS or Calyx or Lineage or that directly from the manufacturer if you wanted to. OnePlus or Samsung or anybody else should be able to have a little drop-down menu where you get to choose. Do you want Google's Android? You want Daniel McKay's Android? You want Nicholas Merrill's Android? You want EOS? You want this, that, or the other? The same way, when you go to Dell, you should be able to choose if you want to be able to buy a device with an AMD processor or an Intel processor, with Linux or with Windows. Again, this used to be something that they got in trouble for. If Microsoft went out of their way to make it damn near impossible or financially bad for a manufacturer to offer a computer with Ubuntu on it. If Intel twisted OEMs' arms to keep them from offering AMD processors with their computer, this used to be something that you actually got in trouble for. But now, hey, fuck it. Who cares? YOLO. Let them do whatever they want. And again, I could at least respect it if some lawmaker just came out and said, we don't care about antitrust anymore. We're going home. Here's your tax dollars back that we wasted with this fucking agency. At the very least, at that point, I could appreciate the level of intellectual honesty and ideological consistency. But we don't have that. Here in America, we still pretend that we care about antitrust. And if we do, I think that we should be beating India to finding them on this. I'm just saying. Nothing wrong with India. But let's get to work. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. That's it for today. And as always, I hope you learned something. I'll see you all in the next video. Bye now.